Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome. I'm your hostess with the mostess for this morning. And it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Gero Renker here. I've known Gero for a few years now. He's the co-founder of what was Program Framework, a Microsoft partner at the forefront of Microsoft PPM technologies. They're now trading as Power Framework, which gets me really excited because I don't know about you guys, but Microsoft's new Power Platform is my new thing. I'm loving it. I can't do it. I'd love to be a citizen developer, but I can't do it. I find people that can, and then they turn themselves into unicorn and go and find a better job somewhere else. But hey, that's a whole different story. Gero is also a member of Microsoft's Partner Advisory Council for Project Solutions, and he's going to hopefully help us use the Microsoft technologies to delight us. And I'm really intrigued now to see what my new virtual team members of the PMO are going to look like. So over to you, Gero.
Thank you very much, Carol. Yeah, so I've been in business for 20 years. As Carol said, my company used to be called Program Framework. We've recently rebranded to Power Framework. And really the speed of change that we've seen in the technology field has of course been amazing. And recently that speed of innovation has picked up again, of course. And that is, of course, down to AI. Microsoft really has been focusing on AI features that were assistive in nature, so helping users to create content, to analyze, to automate. But now we are really entering a new phase, the phase of autonomous agents. So these are agents that are running in the background, they reason, they collaborate, they act. And as PMO, I think it's fair to say that we have a role to play in the safe adoption of AI technologies. And my presentation today is intended to arm you with knowledge so that you can possibly assume a role of influencer or even leadership in that strategy that needs to be created in your organization for the safe adoption of AI. Now, today we are talking a lot about Microsoft technologies, actually. And while there are a lot of concepts to be covered that are technology agnostic, really, very quickly one gets down to talking technology features in the platform. Now, I think it's valid because, of course, so many people are in the Microsoft platform. We find Microsoft Cloud technologies in any sector, in any type of organization. Can I just test that assumption? Can I assume that pretty much everyone here is in the Microsoft platform? Can I see a show of hand of those that, yeah, all the hands are up, right? So that's why we can talk about Microsoft technologies specifically and finding that a lot of people are interested in this. And there are a few technical aspects that I'm covering here today. I'm not going to give you any sort of training on how to use Copilot Studio to create your own AI agents or anything like that, but we are talking quite a few sort of technology concepts in this, and that is a necessity. I think some of that understanding is incredibly valuable when it is about, you know, being able to participate in conversations about emerging AI. So with that, we're focusing on just some of the underlying concepts. We're going to talk about AI, autonomous agents, and we're also definitely talking about the risk of those. And when I, you know, entitled this presentation, your new PMO team member, you know, I could have put a question mark behind that because it's not so obvious that that is going to be imminent and it's not so obvious that that's all just going to be great and plain sailing and you're going to get a huge benefit out of it. There is a difficult journey ahead, I think is fair to say in many ways. So I'm going to start by giving you a little bit of an agent example. This is a really simple agent. It's called the Project Quality Assistant. My colleague Duncan knocked this up last week for me. And what this does is it's something that we can surface in your Microsoft user interface, for example, embedded into Teams or into an application, Power Apps application, for example. And what it does is, you can see here, it's suggesting various prompts. I hope you can see that. Scan for overdue stuff, overdue risks and so on. And so here I'm typing in list active projects. Okay, so it can find projects that are somewhere in a database that are flagged as active. And then I'm going to say, hey, are there any quality concerns with a particular project? And then again, it's going to return some information. It says, yes, the infrastructure upgrade project has some quality concerns. There's one status report with a date older than 30 days, and there's some issues and risks that are out of date, and so on. Now, this is a assistive agent. You might even call it a chatbot. Microsoft has abandoned that word. It's an agent as far as Microsoft is concerned. But it's definitely not an autonomous agent. It's not running in the background. This is the kind of stuff that we've seen. But I wanted to just show you what are some of the underlying concepts of this that are going to be relevant, for any type of AI capability. Certainly when Microsoft talks about agents. First thing to say is this agent we designed in something called Copilot Studios, and Copilot Studio lets organizations design and manage custom AI agents using natural language and low-code tools. Okay, so this is, and you may have, the word low code is something that is often mentioned in the context of Microsoft technologies, arming end users with tools to build stuff in the Microsoft platform, and AI is no different. Microsoft is looking to give those tools to people like us, people in the PMO, people that are not developers, and that is certainly what they're looking to do. What IT thinks about it is a different question, right? They might not like the idea that, and that's always the question, you're arming the citizen developer with all sorts of tools, and IT go, oh my God, someone finally has to support this stuff and upgrade it, and it's a different question, and that is again the ever important conversation about how do we divide up the engagement with these kind of technologies between IT and let's say you guys in the PMO. But anyway, Copilot Studio. Also important to say, this is not the only way that we create AI agents. This is the end user experience for low code, but there are other complex tools in the Microsoft platform that allow professional developers to create AI capabilities that are much more complex than what we can do in Copilot Studio. Anyway, so how have we built this agent? And again, so the idea why I'm telling you this is there are some concepts in there that are good to know. How does this stuff actually work? So we've got here an overview that describes the agent at a high level and what it's meant to be doing. So this agent will give advice around plans stored in this case, Dataverse tables, the database of the Power Platform. Each plan has relationships, and so on and so on. So that's the agent's role or goal. And then agents have knowledge. So here we have defined a bunch of knowledge sources. So that can't be pointing to documents in a SharePoint library, for example, or public websites, or, as is the case here, Dataverse tables. So second time I mentioned the word Dataverse. Dataverse is the database of the Power Platform, and you've heard of Power Apps. They tend to use information in Dataverse, and Dataverse, as a database, is absolutely optimized to drive AI. And a lot of business rules and behaviors and metadata and information that's useful to AI is really embedded into database itself. So when we declare a data column, we can give it a lot of information that is ultimately then helpful to AI. And what you can see here is a list of tables in my application, and this happens to be the Power Framework application that you can admire in the exhibition after this little talk if you want to. And these are tables in this application where you see your benefits, change, issue, plan, risk, and so on. And actually there's more behind it. I could drill into any one of these tables, and there's additional rules, and telling AI how to grab data from these tables, okay? But keep in mind, knowledge sources could be all sorts of content. For example, SharePoint documents with your process descriptors, for example. So that's knowledge, and then we have triggers and channels, and that's telling or defining how our agent is going to start, what's initiating it, and where is it going to run. And it's actually running in Microsoft 365 and a Teams channel, and then I can actually push it into a particular channel if I wanted to, and so on. And by the way, a lot of the technology that's now emerging, particularly in the context of autonomous agents, is new, and Microsoft is doing right now, made just recent announcements in 2025 about how agents could be triggered and how agents collaborate and work together, and they will have memory and all that kind of stuff. So be aware, every time you look at this thing, you'll probably see something new popping up because it's constantly being innovated. The speed of change, as I said, is incredible here. We've also got, probably the most important thing, we've got instructions, guiding its reasoning, setting tone and boundaries. So it's saying here things like, you are an agent working with plan data in a model-driven app. Each plan is linked to risk issues, and then it's got some filtering rules, and then there's some data quality concerns are identified using the following conditions. Status date is older than 30 days, issue concerns, issue age is greater than 30 days, and so on, right? So this is, it's language. This is large language model. This is a narrative. And here you find one of the key, criteria of what makes AI, because you might say, a lot of what this does could have been done in the past through a workflow. We could kick off a workflow that, identifies risks that are out of date or something, and we could schedule that to run every morning and send, even talk to a Teams channel and put a chat and content into a Teams channel or whatever. That workflow might have had an algorithm, a filter that says, this field, the due date on this record, if greater than 30 days, give me this message, right? Very specific. And something that is deterministic, you give it an input, you always accept the same output. AI works with large language models, and this is probabilistic, and it's interpreted, and every time I run this, it's going to come up with something else. The output is going to be slightly different, the wording is going to change, because there's reasoning, and it's about the probability of the way that AI evaluates language. It has the benefit that I can, really create this as an end user, can't I? Because I've described this in natural language. There are a bunch of other things that I might configure in here. Topics and conversation flow, so I can put some very specific instructions on how to engage with the end user if this is a conversational agent. Actions and tools, so I can give this agent tools to do stuff. Now, this agent currently doesn't do anything, right, other than conversing with me and giving me information back. but I could connect it to tools that actually do stuff. Maybe update data or communicate with the project manager of the project rather than engaging in conversation with me. Another important thing, authentication permissions, who can use it, what data connections it can access, what actions it's authorized to perform. And then we also find in here monitoring and analytics, so conversation logs, success and failure rates, and so on. So this is where, once an agent has been up and running for a ton of time, we can go back there and say, well, what actually, how often has it been run? What we can measure and analyze its performance. Now, if I now wanted to take my quality assistant and make this more capable, I might look at the way that Microsoft categorizes these agents. Microsoft uses the word agent for everything. Actually, there are a lot of people that define this sort of technology and then say, what I've just shown you isn't an agent. Yes, it is a chatbot. It's not an agent. They insist that agents should be autonomous and acting in their own right. But that's just terminology. So this was a retrieval agent, what we've just built here. So just, that retrieves some data and talks to me. Next level up would be a task agent where it then actually does something with that. So if we talked about tools, so I could give it a tool to maybe communicate with the project owner or update the information in some way or whatever else. But finally, and you see here, I nicked this image from Microsoft, it says public preview, autonomous agents is where I could get this thing to work in the background, and it does quality checks, and it does that triggered by events that happen in the database, or we could even automate this in some way, so it wakes up in the morning, that kind of stuff. And it does stuff without me being involved, and that then starts to become an autonomous agent. Some other concepts that are relevant and that you might want to know about when it comes to this whole conversation of AI. Now, this is all in the Microsoft world pulling us back into what's called the Power Platform, right? And the Power Platform is the home of low-code experiences, so that, again, business or citizen developers, as they're called, could be enabled to build stuff. And this really is a toolbox, probably the most advanced digital toolbox to build apps and automations, and most people know Power BI. So, we're putting data together and analyzing this with Power BI. And you see here Dataverse at the bottom. Dataverse, as I already mentioned, the database. This is really the key for it all, because everything depends on data. This unifies lots of information, and the Power Platform then helps to turn that into business features, functions, capabilities. So Copilot Studio sits right here in the Power Platform and gives us that low-code experience for building AI components. And we're also seeing here data connectors. So 1,000 plus data connectors, it says here. So, if you want an AI agent to talk to ServiceNow, for example, because you've got help desk information coming in through ServiceNow, you have a connector in the platform that allows you to connect to that. And SAP or whatever, cloud services, databases, and so on, this platform can connect. And that means you can give those connectors to AI as tools or as ways of accessing data in other systems and start to orchestrate AI infused processes that go beyond the platform and beyond your Microsoft world into the ecosystem of your applications. Now, this is rather dry, and a lot of download the presentation from PMO conference after the event. But I thought it'd be worth to just clarify how AI agents get access to content, because that is really, really important, because AI agents rely on content. Obviously, giving them access to information is what makes them useful. And therein lies the risk, because we don't want them to see information that we don't want them to see. And when we roll out AI in our organization, we're doing it on top of an information architecture and content that we've captured historically, and no one has really thought about, properly securing it, or the risk of suddenly an AI agent finding stuff that normally an end user wouldn't have come across. So it was never a problem, although it was always there for someone to stumble over, and when they shouldn't have done, suddenly AI will make that more likely. Right? So and here's the number one risk in our AI strategy is of course our legacy content that isn't properly secured. So how does AI get information? So first of all, it's through when we use Copilot, as you probably all have done, as a personal productivity tool, then it will access information that I have access to. And the one term here that I want you to remember is Microsoft Graph. It's just, again, a technology term. Graph is basically the way that we can access information that is unstructured, associated with a user. Their emails, their Teams conversations, all that stuff is accessible, and Graph really administers the access rights to that. So if you can't open a document or an email, then your Copilot can't either, that you're talking to. Then we have connectors. I briefly mentioned connectors. So if I give a connector to an AI agent as a tool, then that connector needs to come with its authentication, and it will go and grab ServiceNow information, whatever, and that AI agent now, through that connector and the way it's been authorized, has access to that connected data set. But then you saw me adding knowledge. We will see a lot more of that. So we can add SharePoint content or attach documents to AI agents themselves. So that's grounding data, so we can specifically, equip an agent with data. And then finally, what's important, tenant-level boundaries. So we are operating within your Microsoft 365 tenant. Not obviously mentioning connectors here that, as you said, allows a agent control access to other data sources, but generally we're operating in the 365 tenant, and AI expects Entra permissions, Entra, so what used to be called Active Directory, data loss prevention policies, and all the stuff that is built into the Microsoft platform in terms of securing content. Also very important, Microsoft AI doesn't use your data to train its public models. So your content never leaves your tenant. That's probably the number one question that people always ask. Is it safe? Is our content going to stay within the boundaries of our Microsoft Cloud? And that is absolutely the case. Okay, let's get on to autonomous agents. Why don't we? So what are autonomous agents? They are proactive, so they automatically respond to signals, and they run in the background. They're triggered in some way. They can run independently and seamlessly complete tasks. And they're adaptive, non-deterministic, and able to produce different outcomes from the same initial condition. So as I mentioned, a Power Automate flow that calculates overdue projects will always flag exactly the same items. But an AI agent might come up with different results each time it runs. And that's because it uses probabilistic reasoning, so large language models that generate words by probability and not exact rules. And obviously, it has context from dynamic data, so the data that it works with might change. And particularly when it uses, data from Teams or meeting information. And then there's something called the temperature of the AI model. It's actually the level of creativity. I might want my AI agent to be really creative and come up with new stuff every time. That's actually really difficult to test. How do I actually know? And this is, by the way, this goes back to my quality agent. When it comes up with different stuff every time, sometimes that stuff is wrong. And it didn't pick up a particular record, and you go, why the hell does... And you have to reword the prompting and run it, and there is no 100% tested status of this AI agent, where I've done a test plan, I've evaluated all the different test scenarios, I've run through them all, and I've got a proven tick the box every time. So this is now fully tested, right? We have to say goodbye to that, and then I'll say a few more things about that in a minute. One thing that is also emerging, as is so much of this, what I'm talking about is emerging, is preview technologies. Microsoft are going to create enterprise-grade identities for agents. So, in other words, agents will get the same identity management as human users. Microsoft Entra or Active Directory, which is the register of all user accounts within your Microsoft tenant, and as you may know that you put them into different security groups, and that defines what they can do and what they can see in your Microsoft world, and in terms of Microsoft applications and what access they have to content. So AI agents will be no different. And again, I think this is quite interesting to really underlines how AI agents are going to be treated in this platform. So conditional access policies, multi-factor authentication, least privilege roles, monitoring sign-in activities as if they were human beings. Now, you already have access to a fully autonomous AI agent, and that is Teams Facilitator. Anyone using that? Can I see any hands that have made use of that? So Teams Facilitator is running in the sidebar of Teams and is transcribing your meeting, of course, but it can do so much more. It can before the meeting read the agenda and previous notes and objectives, suggest the structure, and prompt participant with preparation tasks during the meeting, manages time, captures decisions, actions, and so on. And after the meeting, summarizing outcomes, assigning actions in Microsoft Planner or Loop, and so on. So this is really already like a junior PMO officer sitting in your meetings. That is already your virtual team member. And if you use this well, this has potential for efficiency gains and time savings and so on. It has agency, the ability to perceive context, reason, and act within rules. And it operates within the Microsoft 365 graph security boundary. So what that means is if a participant has, or let's put it this way, this team has access to content, and the individuals that join this team share content, and the AI agent sees that content as well. So the chats that are happening within the context of this meeting, the documents that are being shared, and so on, Teams Facilitator will have access to that, and the technology to achieve that is Graph. So I thought I'd throw that in as an example of an agent, and that is already live and kicking in your Microsoft tenant, but it is one that is not in any way configured through Copilot Studio or the normal ways of how we might create agents. It's built into the Microsoft infrastructure. It's actually entirely fixed in what it does. That we can't really influence its behavior. It is what it is. But it gives us an idea of the way that things are going, and really what Microsoft are working towards, and technology has just been announced to facilitate this, is multi-agent orchestration. So agents that can exchange data, collaborate on tasks, and divide their work based on each agent's expertise. And this is still in its infancy. Although I can already show you in Copilot Studio, when I create an agent, I can nominate other agents that it can collaborate with, but this is really just emerging, and Microsoft just released an AI collaboration framework, I think in September. This technology, Microsoft is working furiously on this. And so, if we look ahead into the future, here's my idea of what we might see in terms of independent, autonomous agents working together. So we might have a project intake agent that screens new project requests for completeness and business alignment, and then we have maybe a portfolio modeling agent that looks at the data and creates, evaluates portfolio scenarios against budget or resources and strategy constraints. And then we might have governance and compliance agents that monitors projects for, adherence to our PMO policies. We give that agent our policies as knowledge sources, and it then starts, literally, here's a bunch of documents, agent, please, check what's going on in our world of projects. Maybe a risk intelligence agent that reviews project risk logs and detects cross-project dependencies and so on. And then a communication agent that sort of summarizes insights from the other agents and generates portfolio insights and communicates with people, right? At the moment, you'd be hard pushed to create this. But that's, where we're going. And I'll talk a little later, in just a few minutes, on what we actually need to have in place to ever have a hope of making this happen. And that is, of course, consistent data sources, right? It doesn't work very well with the traditional world of disconnected spreadsheets and PowerPoint decks and Word documents and so on. We are not going to achieve this. If we want to get there, we really need to look at the underlying data sources that may make this happen. But before we get there, let's just discuss that while this has promise, it also has its risk. So on the promising side, I'm listing here faster, more consistent decision support, pattern recognition across project humans might miss. Obviously, these agents might pick up on stuff that no human might detect, particularly in very large portfolios, where we have hundreds or thousands of projects, and I can show you if you want to. See me later, I can show you how we use AI, for example, to evaluate lessons learned and extract them from, like projects that are like to the one that I'm kicking off, and that sort of stuff is ideal for AI and really presents what we can do as humans, and it's round the clock. AI agents don't go home; they don't worry about work-life balance. It also has the promise of retaining knowledge in the organization. AI agents, not only do they not go home for the evening, they never leave. They don't go on holiday, they don't resign. And a lot of knowledge is actually going to be retained through AI in the business in ways that are unheard of. A lot of benefit and efficiency and time savings, obviously. But here's some of the perils, and I've already talked a little bit about the non-deterministic nature of agents. It's what you might call black box reasoning. Unclear why an agent made a recommendation. The inability to absolutely guarantee correct and useful outcomes when this is of a non-deterministic nature. Yet humans might overtrust AI and just rubber stamp what they see, particularly because they have no chance of really validating, and it's just easy to say. And it's interesting how, we see emerging scenarios and experiences of how humans, interact with AI and really start to see them as AI, as people. And then diffusion of accountability, no single owner for AI-made decisions. And that for me is the big one. If AI rejects a project request, who's actually accountable? Where's the human in the room that will ultimately take responsibility and say, yes, it's on me. I am heading up this department or whatever, the bug stops with me. So let's talk about how we can safeguard some of that. And there are 3 areas: design principles, governance framework, and transparency to users that I've listed here. So from a design principle perspective, for me, the most important one, human in the loop. So continue to require explicit approvals for critical decisions. We do not let an AI agent take a critical decision. The AI agent will only recommend and then prompt a user to finally approve or reject. Now, we need to make sure that our AI agents log information, so the results of what they produce can be explained and are auditable. And the technologies are there to make sure, and I've already mentioned the idea that I can look back at the history of an AI agent. And policy grounding, so we need to give agents as much information as we can about how we want to work around here and the background for their actions and policy documents and all that good stuff. If we don't have it, we better create it before we start investing in AI, because then AI will just start making up its own stuff. So from a governance framework, we really need to understand who owns, trains, and monitors each agent. So there's such a thing as ownership. And AI agents, of course, are going to be potentially all over the show. You're all over your organization, and who is actually taking charge of the governance and of the whole strategy of that. I think the PMO is naturally placed to take a very important role in this in terms of their ongoing role in managing people, process, technology. I think that, there's a lot there for the PMO to take charge. And we need change control. So, we can't just update prompts or models and then republish them. That there needs to be strict control and sandbox testing before deploying new autonomous logic. And then as an end user, there needs to be transparency. I need to know that AI has provided an output to me, or that a certain decision was made by AI, or that I am in a position to potentially question what's happened. Now, as a very pragmatic example, I'm giving you an idea here of where you might start. Now, we obviously starting to understand that this is a much bigger topic than across the organization, but you can do stuff in your own world. And my example would be there's an agent action called AI approvals, and this action is given a bunch of documents, and this example here is an AI approval for hardware requests. I haven't had the time to turn this into what this should really be, project requests, but it gives you a good idea. So we have documents that give us guidance on hardware requests, and then instructions on how we should deal with incoming requests and validate those against strategies and guidance provided in these attached documents. And there's budget constraints, duplicate equipment, reject if the IT asset inventory shows that this equipment already exists, and so on, right? So this is exactly the sort of stuff we could do for project requests. And here you see we can test this, and this is a sample response. It's rejected, and it says it's rejected based on the following criteria: policy violation, the employee is tier 1 but requests a premium laptop, da-di-da-di-da, right? So this is the sort of stuff that is quite useful, and what you could do is link this to a SharePoint list, or a form that you embed into Teams, and users fill in a form, and then the AI has strategy documents or evaluation guidance as knowledge, and then you roll out advancing levels of autonomy over time. So first of all, it's assisted, so you actually give the end user a response straight away. The AI says, listen, I like your request, but actually you should be rewording this. It doesn't seem to be aligned with any of our strategies, which are X, Y, Z. So give immediate feedback to the end user. Then we could go to semi-autonomous, where the agent actually scores the project. So we give instructions in the agent to say, apply a score from 1 to 5 based on your evaluation of da-da-da-da-da-da. And write that back to the request and send the PMO a message. And then the third level is autonomous, where the agent simply approves or rejects the project request. Do you really want to go there? Nah. You want to keep humans in the loop, but that's what autonomy would do, right? So this is an idea of what you might do that does not depend on a whole bunch of data and policies and AI strategy. It can be done as a test bed, if you like, for AI capabilities, very specific to the PMO. And with that, I'm going to run out of time. I just want to say AI needs a digital foundation. So it's really important that you think about where your data is. And there's a lot of information here in the way that you should structure your data, make sure that you have relationships. People don't store documents in obviously on their hard drives of their laptops. Everything goes into well-structured SharePoint or OneDrive containers. You don't have different versions of documents, version 1, version 2, version 3. No, it's one version, so that AI has no doubt as to what is the last one, and so on and so on. So really important. And then this recent report by Gartner. By 2028, 80% of generative AI business applications will be delivered on existing data management platforms. And what that means is that it's not standalone tools or disconnected systems. AI needs integrated data, metadata, and semantic context. So I'm saying here, get your PPM tool choice priorities right. Don't go and buy Monday.com, I'm going to say, when you're in the Microsoft platform, because you've just shot yourself in the foot, because you've divided your world in two. And if you're looking out to buy PPM tools, and I would say that as a PPM tool vendor in the Microsoft platform, if you are a Microsoft user, put your PPM tools in the Microsoft platform. Make sure it uses Dataverse and stores its content in the Microsoft platform, and all the interactions around your PPM data are visible through Graph and whatever. That's what you want to do to get ready for a future in AI. Also, some words on how you want to position yourself. I think there's clearly a need for you to align with IT, data governance, digital strategy teams, because you need to co-develop a roadmap that aligns your business needs. So you're an important partner with IT. And I think you should be taking a leadership in this sort of safe experimentation and learning journey that isn't going to be straightforward and easy, particularly from a people change perspective. So, you're already managing standards, templates, and processes. Extend that remit to AI governance. This is your chance to be an active participant or leader in this process. But I'm not going to go through that, and just we have minus 45 seconds for Q&A. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, do come and see me out there in the exhibition. Have we? We have 5 minutes?
We've got 5 minutes.
Oh, that's good.
Any questions? We bamboozled everybody, Gero.
There's someone there. Okay.
If I, as a regular user, want to use Copilot that my PMO configured and everything and provided for me. Do I need to have a Copilot license?
Licensing. I deliberately didn't put a slide on licensing in here because that really would have made it difficult for me to come in on time. So you, as an end user, can be licensed to use Copilot Studio, and then you can publish agents to people in the business, and they can use Microsoft 365 licensing. And when an agent consumes a model, it consumes credits. So there's credits in the underlying platform that are consumed through the consumption of models. But you, as an end user, with there's different licensing. But for example, with the Power Platform license, you can use Copilot Studio. But licensing is a bit of a complex topic, particularly in this space.
Bane of our lives. You need a degree to understand Microsoft licensing, don't you? Anybody else?
Tanya?
Any other questions?
Thank you. Thanks, Gero. That was really insightful. I've got a question about something you mentioned about AI basically being like a junior PMO officer. Because how do you feel about the conversation where we say basically AI in a couple of years is going to make any sort of entry jobs redundant? That's very philosophical, sorry.
That's absolutely what is possible. Obviously we can interpret documents. AI can extract data from documents. If you have a document that should be the basis for a project, we can absolutely give that to AI and say create the project record. Again, it's important that that ends up in a database, a PPM database, where that data is structured and defined and so on. From there on in, AI, the further processing assisted by AI, needs that database. But yeah, absolutely, anything that comes into the PMO as data content can absolutely be handled by AI.
Oh, there's a sobering thought. Don't end on that. Who's got a happier question to ask before we go for lunch? No, but it's interesting, isn't it? And then as a co-author of the PMO competency framework, I'm just having a bit of a think now of what that means in terms of the PMO competence. So learning this stuff.
It means this was something that I skipped across, that PMO rules are changing and from paper pushing to managers. And it's more about dealing with the unanticipated, the emergent, the unstructured problems, direction, vision, innovation. We need strong interpersonal skills. We are working with people. And we could see this as a beautiful thing where we get rid of all the administrative legwork and we focus on what really makes projects successful.
Just following on from that, the kind of entry-level jobs are likely to change, aren't they? Because it's the same question as do kids still need to learn to do mental maths when everybody has a calculator in their pocket? So maybe those entry-level jobs are just going to change, and that information, building those original documents, will move on from that. But on that note, how easy would it be to kind of wrap what it's doing, wrap some sort of training module around it so that you can quickly bring in new starters and upskill them, so things that would have taken me a couple of years maybe to learn, they can learn really fast.
That's exactly what I mean by retaining knowledge. AI can be the assistant, and actually, because that's going to be what we see more and more. It's context aware, and it can tell me what I'm supposed to be doing at a given stage of the project, and also warn me that certain things are missing or overdue, or advising me on what is the next step, because it has as knowledge, all our process documentation, and again here, this is the link to the single system. It's now relating it to the data that it sees of the project that I'm currently looking at, and if it can't see that data, then we've got an ineffective AI assistant.
It's really interesting, isn't it? It's that we're not going to not have those jobs. what they're going to do in those jobs is going to be slightly different. So my brain is thinking of what we do as records officers, document management becomes even more important, because making sure that they're saving stuff in the right place, it's saving in the right format, so that all of this stuff can then do its magic at the other end and stuff. And then obviously then focusing our roles as well on the value add, which is what you're just saying there, which is fantastic. Cool. Any more questions, or have we covered everything off? Just remains for me to say then thank you, Gero, for showing us the art of the possible. Intrigued to see what the future looks like.
Thank you very much.